This is Mui Shinchi, better known to many of you as Sensei Mui. I'm the person like in charge of Hongaku International and the local Sangha as well. And I had a request to teach about the Five Elements meditation. And it's very cool. Now, there's nobody here in the classroom today, here in the meditation area, because this is going to be a more or less personal teaching. And there are going to be more of these as time goes on, so we'll have both classes and we'll have these, excuse me, these more personal videos for teachings. Deeper teachings on a more personal level, and there are going to be more of these because what we're trying to do, or at least Hongaku is trying to do, is raise awareness of as close to we can know of the original intent behind Mahayana. And Mahayana did not start as a separate tradition from the school of the elders. It started within that context and grew out of it. And so we'll be teaching more and more about Ashwagosha and the awakening of faith in the Mahayana, and try to decide really what Mahayana means within context of greater Buddhism, and try to figure out what these more ancient practices were about and how to utilize them in everyday life. These are called sadhana. Sadhana actually refers to a practical discipline. So Zen is a sadhana. The Five Elements practice is a sadhana. Praises to the Tara is a sadhana. And it doesn't necessarily mean it comes in a little book and we have to read the book and follow the prayers in a particular way or say things in a particular way. And it really doesn't matter if we mispronounce the Sanskrit, the Pali, the Japanese, Chinese, Vietnamese, Tibetan. It really doesn't matter. What matters is that this discipline that you're using is getting you close to what has been called Buddha nature. And what is Buddha nature? Ashwagosha, one of the guys that coined this term, originally refers to Buddha nature as simply the mind. Mind is Buddha nature. Therefore, you are Buddha nature since you participate in mind. You do have one, don't you? Well, I think you probably do. Anyway, so since we're trying to create more teaching videos that will help you in your practice, also help you in your own personal journey through the conventional reality, and we'll call that part self-actualization. We'll call the spiritual part enlightenment. And in a sense, they're both the same thing. In a sense, you can't be one without the other as far as enlightenment is concerned. You have to fully self-actualize as a natural and authentic human being. You can self-actualize as an inauthentic human being as well, I suppose, but it doesn't get you to where you want to go. Now, last week in this room, we held what was called a refuge ceremony. In Buddhism, it's called an ordination. You are ordained to be a Buddhist. And it's your formal entry into Buddhism. And the term refuge is interesting because the Buddha said, be a refuge unto yourself. Who else can be your refuge but yourself? So when we take refuge, we take it in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. three manifestations of the Buddha's teachings, the results of the Buddha's teachings. In one sense, we're mouthing the words Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, and what we're really saying is, I'm taking refuge in my karma. I'm changing my karma. I'm making deliberate attempts to change my habit mind and give it some better habits, some more skillful habits. And meditation is one of the devices we use. Now, when we start a meditation, we normally do so with a sense that we're taking refuge. We're taking refuge in the Buddha as the teacher, the fellow back here. Now, the historical Buddha is long gone. We're not taking refuge in a dead guy. We're paying respects to the original historical Buddha as a teacher, as the one that introduced us to this particular way, the marga, as said in Sanskrit, marga in Pali, Tao in Chinese, and Do in Japanese. And what this is, this refuge in the Dhamma, is a commitment to a more natural way of living. When we take refuge in the Sangha, there are several ways of looking at it. In Theravada, the Sangha is the ordained clergy. In Mahayana, the Sangha is anyone who has made the commitment to practice Dharma. For some lineages of Mahayana, it goes a little further. That Sangha, which actually is where our word sanctuary comes from, that is what we're taking refuge in. That sanctuary that life has to offer. Again, this brings us back to being natural, being authentic. So when we take refuge, we're becoming a refugee. That means we're leaving suffering and confusion and ignorance and aversion and attachment, and we're escaping that, and we're going to a place of sanctuary where we can experience reality in the way that the Buddha taught, that we ourselves can, through this process, become Buddha. And in Mahayana, that refers to mind, the purified mind, which is a radical departure from what we are normally confronted with. We're normally confronted with television, internet, smartphones, texting, hot babes walking up and down the summer streets along the lake or the shore. We're normally in a realm of distraction, which takes us through the samsaric wheel over and over and over again. And that's really what we're seeking sanctuary for. Now I'm going to put my glasses back on so I can read my notes, which are like right in front of me, like a teleprompter. And if this really works out and we get some subscribers, so hit the subscribe button at the bottom of the video, and maybe I can afford to get a makeup person so my nose and head don't shine while I'm doing these things. Okay, a little vanity, please. The Five Elements practice was originally developed, as far as we know, in China by the Chinese Pure Land master Shan-dao. And Shan-dao is in Japanese, he's called Zendo. Interesting name, that. Zendo, the way of Zen. Shan-dao lived between, we believe, 613 and 681, Common Era. And he emphasized this five elements practice. It was probably around a lot longer than he was alive. But he used it as a way of getting people used to the idea of using the Visualization Sutra, because it's sort of a prelude into the Visualization Sutra, which is quite long. It contains 13 visualizations, and someday we'll put up videos of each one of these steps. But it starts out with an understanding of the five elements, and we'll go through them one by one. Why pick on the Visualization Sutra? Well, because it's one of the three major sutras emphasized by the Zendo or Jodo branches of Buddhism. Both mean Pure Land in their respective languages, Chinese and Japanese. And it's a major sutra. It is the one which describes the Pure Land. Now, many people take this description as being quite literal. I don't think that's the case. If that were the case, then we'd be just another heaven-bound religion instead of a discipline and a way of life, practicing to heal our mind from delusion, attachment, aversion. The scrolling down on my notes, the five elements, of course, are earth, water, air. I know there's another one, but we'll go through them as we talk about this particular method of practice. The three sutras of Pure Land are the larger Amitabha Sutra, the smaller Sukhavati Sutra, and the Visualization Sutra. And the first element that we talk about is earth. And the earth element refers to the mindful way of practicing and studying these three Pure Land Sutras. They allow the practitioner to develop very, very high skills of meditative concentration. And when we talk about this Pure Land that we're entering, we use a lot of symbols. Earth is solidity. So we think about solidity. We think when we're meditating, we visualize Earth, not the planet, but rocks, trees, flowers that happen to be on the earth, that require the earth to grow, soil, sand. We can visualize caves. Caves are always good to visualize. And we can visualize Amitabha's attendants as well. And he has two. One of them is Avalokiteshvara, better known as Kuan Yin. And this bodhisattva, usually pictured female, represents engaged compassion. The other attendant that he has is the Bodhisattva Mahastamaprapta, which represents wisdom. So there we have engaged compassion and wisdom, together with Amitabha, infinite light and infinite life. So where do we find this infinite wisdom, this infinite compassion? We find it deep within ourselves. These are not beings we pray to. These are aspirations, qualities which we wish to access, which we wish to become. It is said that Shakyamuni Buddha gave his disciple Ananda a complete description of this realm of bliss, Sukhavati. Again, historically, probably not. We have to remember that in Mahayana we use a lot of symbols. And when we say Buddha as opposed to the Buddha, or we say Shakyamuni Buddha, we're really not talking about a historical figure. We're talking about a state of mind, Buddhahood, enlightenment. And when we say Shakyamuni did this or taught that, or we're not really referring to the historical Buddha. Most of the Mahayana scripture is apocryphal. It's an elaboration of the Buddha's teaching, given from a particular viewpoint, emphasizing a certain aspect or a certain teaching that the historical Buddha did indeed give. So it's really what we're talking about is, what does Buddha as the Dharmakaya, the infinity of life, what is that teaching us within context of the historical Buddha's teaching? So in Buddhism, more than other places, other faiths on earth today, it's much less about the person Buddha than it is about what Buddhahood represents. And since we have 7 billion people on this planet and an infinite number, it seems, of other living beings, there's at least 7 billion perceptual viewpoints of what Buddhahood might look like. So if I became a Buddha, my Buddhahood, that state of Buddhahood, might not look a heck of a lot like your state of Buddhahood, because our past karmas are so vastly different. There are similarities, but there are some huge differences as well. And just because you're a Buddha does not mean that you are no longer to be held accountable for your past mistakes. They sort of hang with you for a very, very long time, but you're not creating new karma. You're not creating new mistakes, and you're not creating new merits either, because if you were creating good karma, you're not a Buddha. You're an ordinary being that's creating good karma. You may be a highly realized bodhisattva, but you're still an ordinary being, just like the rest of us. So, the symbolism is that the Bodhisattva Dharmakara became the Buddha Amitabha through living out over eons these 48 primal vows, and they're given in detail in the Pure Land Sutras. So the first element that we want to concentrate on is earth, excuse me. And earth is that stability. It's what the Buddha swore upon. When he was confronted by Mara delusion, and Mara said, what proof do you have that you're enlightened? Anybody can claim that. Mara said, Buddha said, the earth as my witness. Not any of the gods, not himself, but the earth. That foundation, that grounding is what we're looking for. So when we sit in meditation, whether it's on the floor, as I am today, or on a chair, or if you're walking, or if you're lying down, wherever you're doing your meditation, the first thing you want to do is ground yourself. Now, some people, like myself, take that quite literally. I like the ground. I like sitting on it, as close to it as possible. So this is the first step. finding stability. That requires relaxing the mind. Why do we carry these? Ooh, malas. This one is a Tendai mala. I really prefer it since my ordination is a Tendai monk. This is really cool because the beads are shaped a little bit differently and they're easier to manipulate than the round beads. So we start by grounding ourselves. There are several different ways. Since this is a Pure Land practice, let's do it in a Pure Land way. You can take the mala and do 108. I'll do 7 to get us started to show you how it's done. You start out with your refuge. Buddham saranam gacchami, Dhammam saranam gacchami, Sangham saranam gacchami. Fine. Now, if you wish, you can do an aspiration to become a Buddha for the benefit of all. This is often recommended. It's not necessary. Or you could start out by going Namatassa Bhagavato Arahanto Sama Sambuddhasa and say that 3 times with a bow in between each. Some people add a bell. Bells are cool. Whatever helps you create a sacred space for yourself. Try that. One of the ways of chanting is in a Japanese style. Namo Amida Butsu, 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 108 times. Another way of grounding yourself is, remember the melody, the tune for the refuge. Namo Amitabha Buddha. 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 That was 7. You do that 108 times, it's very, very difficult for thoughts to enter the mind. You cannot stop thoughts. Get rid of that notion right away. But what you can do is slow them down and ignore them. Chanting is a benefit for that. Relaxes the mind so much that you can do zazen. All right, so we do that. You can choose any number of ways of doing the recitation. That is one way. One of the most beneficial ways is taking that same chant and doing it as slowly as possible. inhales on each breath. If you've got all day, you're welcome to do that 108 times. That takes devotion to practice. And my favorite way is the chant that is done in the more or less Pali style. So the first element, while you're chanting, really visualize that element, the earth. What does the earth, your home, look like to you? Very, very important that we actually make that connection with earth, solidity, grounding. So that's what the chanting is for. Next is water. Water is the practice of the Buddha name recitation itself. So while we're visualizing the earth, we're practicing the water element visualization by reciting the name. Visualization doesn't mean you have to see it in your mind or with your eyes. It means that you are imagining it. So there we had earth and water together. So the recitation of the name, whether you say Namo Amitabha Buddha, Namo Amitabha, or simply Amitabha, or as in Theravada land, they like to use the Buddho, which is what the Buddha said of himself when he was asked why he looked so radiant just after enlightenment. And many people use the mala, I do. And water is used to describe the Buddha name recitation because, like water, it flows, and it flows from our heart mind, which incidentally is here. We like to pledge allegiance, from the heart. Now, actually, the heart mind is traditionally located here. It's called hara, and it's where our word hungry comes from, here. And since we're hungry for peace, this is a good place to come from. So it's the heart mind, the chitta, the shin. That's where we're coming from. And each recitation is like a wave, continually moving. And where are the waves? The waves are here on earth. So it's natural that these two elements be combined. Waves of name recitation. Waves wear down the rigidity of the earth, just as the recitation wears down the rigidity of our delusion, the rigidity of our ignorance and defilements. It enables us to become one with the boundless compassion and wisdom of the universe. Flowing water over the earth, grounded yet moving. The air element represents the purifying acts of practicing atonement and veneration. Veneration is more or less an act of gratitude, being grateful for the things of life, rather than constantly bitching and moaning about what we don't have. Ever notice we always want what we don't have? We don't want what we do have? Wouldn't it be better if it were the other way around? If we're unhappy, we want to be happy. We don't want the unhappiness. If we're lonely, we don't want the loneliness. We want compassion. And usually we're very specific about what kind of compassion and who that should come from. Usually it's from someone we find attractive. If we're poor, we don't want poverty, we want wealth. And yet the very things we don't want are our best teachers. Anger is an incredibly effective teacher. Poverty is a very, very good teacher. Being with people you don't like, a phenomenal teacher. Being with people you do like is usually a distraction. Being wealthy is a distraction. We need a balance somewhere. If I'm poor, that teaches me about myself, how I respond to that. I can watch that. If I have gratitude in the things that bring me pleasure all the time, I become a much happier person. Even a poor person can enjoy the warmth of the sun, the taste of rain upon the tongue, the beauty of a flower, the incredible joy in a child's laugh. Even an angry person can enjoy that and be grateful for it. And even a lonely person can be grateful for those things. This is the air element. We give up our old ways of doing things. This is how we atone, and we deliberately change our karma. In the old days, we used to talk about calling upon these heavenly beings, these incredible Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. We don't have to call them down, they're already here. Their mind, same quality as our mind. So we can tap into those resources anytime we want. So what have we got? We've got grounding. We've got the name recitation, which recalls what Buddha is. And we have gratitude for being alive, being able to practice this, being wise enough to see that we need it. The next element is fire. The fire aspect, the element of fire, represents the actual practice of visualizing these elements, of visualizing gratitude, the things for which we are grateful. When we get into this mode and we're practicing the fire element, we're actually seeing Avalokiteshvara in our mind. She who hears the cries of the world. And Mahastamapatra. The word stamina is right in there. It means great strength or great stamina. She's the one who has attained great strength. And we can latch on to these resources by visualizing them, by knowing what they are, what they represent. And that quality, just because we can visualize it, is already within us. We can use it, we can utilize it. This visual meditation is one of the most powerful practices to produce deep, one-pointed concentration, leading us to samadhi. Concentrating, seeing what it is we desire to become. It's a skillful desire. This method of visualization is outlined in the Visualization Sutra as well. This is like a short form of it. So we've had earth, we've had water, we've talked about air, fire, and now space. And what is space? Of course, space represents mind itself, empty of delusion, attachment, and aversion, where all that exists are these visualizations that we ourselves are creating. After all, what is Amitabha Buddha? When we talk about infinite life, we're talking about life devoid of death, empty of death, emptiness. Compassion, empty of conceptualization, which causes us to separate ourselves from others. Great strength, empty of the poverty of weakness, which keeps us from practicing. We're talking about emptiness, and we know it's empty. And we know that this is something that we are creating. Because emptiness can take any form we desire it take. The question uses a koan very often in chant is, who is reciting the Buddha's name? Mind is reciting the Buddha's name. Mind that you are utilizing in your practice. And this is an explanation of the 5 elements meditation. In original Buddhism, this is also used. In the 40 objects of meditation that are given to us by the historical Buddha in the suttas, we find 10 kasinas. A fire kasina, a space kasina, an earth kasina, a water kasina. They're all there. All 5 elements: earth, water, air, fire, space. All of them are from original Buddhism, but now given a little bit of a different emphasis where you can customize them to meet your needs, your proclivities. Because after all, who knows better than you what you need in practice, what you need in your life? And it gives you an opportunity to be able to proceed. This meditation, you can use 1 element at a time, or you can combine all 5, or combine 2 together or 3 together. It doesn't matter. That's up to you. What helps you to concentrate? The practice needs to fit you. You do not need to fit the practice. Dharma is Dharma is Dharma. It's all encompassing. It can hold you, and it can hold me too. Thank you.